Hi there. Thank you for watching, and of course to Oxfordshire Libraries for allowing me this platform. I'm Steve Sheppard, and my debut novel, A Very Important Teapot, this is it. I'll put it back on the shelf behind me. Which is a comedy spy thriller, was published by Claret Press last October. The book concerns the hunt for a lost cache of Nazi diamonds, and the action takes place largely in southeastern Australia. It's a fast-paced, rollicking read. Someone described it as though Terry Pratchett had written James Bond. As our somewhat naive hero, Dawson, the main protagonist, is pursued by agents from 3 different countries, half the local underworld and the police, to a small town genuinely called Yakandanda in Victoria. It's light-hearted, escapist entertainment with laugh-out-loud moments and several characters who aren't necessarily what they seem to be. Along the way, you'll get a lesson on how to fire a gun, discover a novel use for a set of jump leads, attend a folk festival, and meet a dog called Dog. Comedy writer and actress Helen Lederer calls it a curiously magical thriller with suburban subterfuge and sparkle. And in the 8 months since publication, I've been overwhelmed by the large number of positive reviews I've received, posted on Amazon and Goodreads. They say it's never too late to pursue your dream, whatever it may be. And I didn't start writing A Very Important Teapot until I'd reached the relatively advanced age of 64. Nearly 64, anyway. It was published when I was 66. The title, however, had been knocking around in my head for over a quarter of a century. One of those things I read somewhere and I thought, well, that is an interesting and memorable phrase, and I might use it sometime. Eventually, of course, I did. Like so many others, I'd always thought I had a book in me, but finding where that book was hidden was a long old job. I'd started writing several novels over the years, but they always seemed to founder at about the 15-page mark. I'm not the first to convince myself that life just gets in the way. I also had trouble coming up with a plot. Big trouble. Finally, on a plane flying home from a month in Australia, hence the location of the book, of course, in April 2017, I decided to forget about trying to come up with a watertight story in advance and just sit down and try to put 90,000 words down on paper or screen by the end of the year and see what I end up with. In the end, in between work, during the odd hour or two here or there, evenings, weekends, I managed to get down over 100,000 words. And finally wrote The End in January 2018, 9 months or so from start to what I innocently supposed was a finish. Somehow the plot developed along the way. I'd become what I now know to be called a pantser, as in flying by the seat of, to such an extent that I often had no idea how a chapter would finish when I started writing it. All a bit scary, if exciting, but then I had nothing to lose. Anyway, I hadn't finished, of course. I was hardly even at the start of the finish. I hadn't given a thought during the 9 months of writing about what I might do with a finished manuscript, but now I had to decide whether it was all for my own benefit or whether it deserved to be seen by a wider audience. It seemed a bit silly just to put all the hard work away in a drawer and forget about it. So I asked 3 or 4 people what they thought, and because I only know nice people, they all said they liked it. So I started submitting it to literary agents. I did this for about 6 months, and I'm happy to confirm that when people tell new, unknown authors that they can expect to receive a lot of rejections from agents, they are not telling lies. I mean, I got lots of rejections, although admittedly some were quite encouraging rejections. Some agents ignored me completely. I also started sending the manuscript to small independent publishers who accept submissions. Some do. And at this point, I must recommend the Writers and Artists Yearbook as an invaluable source of wisdom and knowledge in that respect. Anyway, long story long, just as I was about to give up, Katie Isbester of Claret Press phoned me at work and said she actually quite liked it. She didn't like the length, though. She wanted it 20% shorter. I think she assumed that I'd walk away at that point in an awfully huff, but I'd gone that far and, hey, someone in the business liked it after all. So I set to, and much to my own surprise, I managed to cut 20,000 words from my baby and sent it off to Katie. The book was a lot better for it. 2 months and a lot more editing later, I signed a contract. So, I'd say to anybody, don't give up. Don't think you're too old. Don't think that the first, or the 20th, rejection is the end of the world. Any opinion is only that of one person. The next person will think differently. 8 months on, I can tell you that the first draft of a sequel to A Very Important Teapot has now been completed, That now needs whipping into shape. More hard graft, but worth it. So watch this space. You will not be surprised to hear that you can borrow A Very Important Teapot from Oxfordshire libraries. You can also buy it, of course, local bookshops, including Mad Hatter in Burford, and online everywhere, you might expect. At the moment, I'm due to be giving a talk at Carterton Library at 6:30 on Friday, the 24th of July. Now, that hasn't definitely been cancelled yet, but I expect it probably will be. But if it does happen, I hope to see as many of you there as possible. There will, of course, be discounted signed books available then. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.